And Chris, this is
Yes.
this is the Global Digest think tank group. You are
Okay.
our guest today. Yes, please, Chris.
So I'm a professor. I teach here at Dongso University. I've worked here almost 20 years now. I teach economics and classes about like social movements, things like that. And then I do research. So I research Russia and a little bit about North Korea, America. But I've studied Russia, for many years now. I went to university there, and that's I don't know what I study. I went to University Santa Cruz in California, and there was German. I could have taken German in the morning. I think it was like 7 in the morning, and then Russian language class was at noon. So I'm like, well, why not why not take Russian? So it was just basically by chance.
By the way, have you ever, crossed over the Russian and Burmese military government relations? Because nowadays the military coup in Burma already 4 years, and the Burmese military is strongly uh, linked with Russian authority. Russian supply a lot of
Yes.
air force and I mean jet fighter and all these related uh, military facility tools to Burmese military, and they also Russians support a lot of coverage in the international image in terms of UN system or regional geopolitical system. So have you ever knowledge on these two authoritarian relationships?
Of course, we've noticed that. I watch the Russian news every day, and Putin is very proud of his in Russian Myanmar, they call it. They're very proud of those connections. They highlight the military connections, and yeah, it's part of Putin's his deeper strategy of working with countries that have been neglected by the West. So of course, the main one is North Korea. North Korea has been locked out of the global system, and so Russia, found a way to get in to work there. Russian diplomats they know Korean very well, and they've really it's become a key. North Korea has become a key player now, a key partner in Russia's war against Ukraine. But Russia's is working with Iran, of course. That's the focus, Iran, and then China. But there's many other countries that have been neglected by the West that are kind of what do you say, kind of hesitant to take a side with the West. So of course, India, Vietnam, and Myanmar. That's one of those. Burma. So yes, yeah. Russia, of course, they from their perspective, they say that the West focuses too much on democracy and human rights and lectures others, and they care more about sovereignty and cultural protecting your own culture, and of course arms. They're willing to sell arms to different regimes. Syria, of course, before Bashar Assad was overthrown. That was a big partner for Russia. So yeah. That Myanmar, Burma fits into this Putin's new strategy, forming these new alliances.
Okay, so as you said, in East Asia, probably Russia has, as you said, the first one is North Korea. So, and maybe probably second one is the Burmese military regime. So in
Yes.
case of North Korea, I think uh, Russia and North Korea cooperation, the level is the highest relationship at the moment. We can see like that.
Yes, yeah. North Korea's become crucial. So North Korea is the only one that's actually actively sending weapons and people. We don't know exactly how much, but it's in the tens of thousands. So they're sending people to Russia. So far, the North Korean soldiers that they've stayed in the Russian territory, Russian Federation territory. So they've been fighting in Kursk, and just yesterday, the Ukrainians invaded Bryansk, another kind of Russian territory, and so I suspect the North Koreans will be going there. I do watch the North Korean news, and I notice when they have this kind of anti-American propaganda. They show what they view as the American soldiers in the Korean War, these atrocities. Some are true, some seem kind of fictional, but they embellish. They show these paintings of American soldiers torturing, carving to death the poor North Koreans. And I noticed each time that North Korea they send troops to Russia, they show these propaganda pieces. And so just recently we've been seeing that, and so I'm assuming they're going to be sending more. The big question is, will these North Korean troops, will they move into Ukraine proper? Will they actually be part of this invasion force? That's a big question. But yeah, North Korea is one of the big ones.
North Korea nuclear weapon, it's totally supplied by Russian in this time.
Well, I mean, this goes back, of course. North Korea, that was in the 90s. They heavily set out to create a nuclear weapons program, and a lot they did on their own. But they got help, of course, from Russian scientists and some Ukrainian. Some of the missile technology was actually from Ukrainian scientists. The Russians point out, fairly. So they helped them along, as mainly through money and things. But of course, recently there's been a lot of guesswork. What Putin is sending to North Korea in return for this aid. He's gotten, especially it's not so much the North Korean manpower as all the ammunition. Both. The idea was Putin would invade 2002. He would make a quick invasion of Ukraine, and in a few weeks, he thought he would conquer Ukraine. It would be over. That was not true. And Russia, they ran out of ammunition. They didn't have the shells, and so they would have. I think Russia was headed towards a collapse. And they needed. That was in May 2002. They cut a deal with North Korea, and the main one is these munitions. And so that propped up Russia. And now it's, of course, my country, America, that's ran out of shell, run out of munitions, run out of arms. And it's Russia that's has the upper hand thanks to North Korea. So the question is, what is Putin? What is he providing to North Korea in return? So we know there's been satellite technology. We know they've been sending these Sukhoi jets, these older kind of jets. We know they've sent those.
Right.
They've helped out with some rockets. They've been helping with the rockets. Now, actual nuclear, I think Putin, he knows there's some red lines, and so he hasn't it's not clear, but I don't think he's given any he's limited the actual nuclear weapons. The disturbing one's the missiles, the intercontinental missiles. Apparently, he's helped. The question is, can North Korea put a nuclear arm on those those missiles, and could it get to Hawaii or my home, Los Angeles? It's still not clear, and I'm not sure the Russians. I don't think they're. They might not do that. They're sending the Russians are sending a lot of food. They're sending a lot of other things, medicine, educational robots. So it's not all it's not all military things, but there's some.
Right. As you said, at the beginning of war, Russian war, Russian invasion, and Putin thought it will finish it in few weeks, but it was not happening. So he may be very frustrated, and then he pulled all kind of diplomat available, even though with the very small country and unimportant. He used to think, maybe probably, North Korea is not, Putin did not consider as equal status or equally relationship, if you see the past. His father, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il was never equally, they has been talk or, relation by Russian. But now Putin has no way or no option. He has to accept North Korea. Kim Jong-un is equal level relationship, equal level head of state. So that we can see Putin behavior, because he doesn't have any option. So he is pulling. In case of Burmese military coup leader, military army leader, it's not head of state, but Putin now accept as head of state. In a few weeks ago, he invited him as a head of state visit to Russia.
Yes.
So we can see how Russia status was going down. He has to accept all unimportant and small country as equal level. So how do you see in these circumstances?
That's a fair point. Russia was on the ropes, definitely 2022, and they just they needed the arms, they needed the help, and it was a kind of embarrassment, of course, for Russia to have to go, and Putin, he made the trip, especially in Asia. That's when you go to visit, you're seen as kind of kowtowing, bowing to the leader. And Putin, he definitely, when he went 2023 to Pyongyang, was is kind of like bowing before Kim Jong-un, who, as you said, during the Soviet times, the Soviet Union just really looked down on. They weren't proper Marxists, and it was a kind of embarrassment, this country. He's kind of looked on as equal, and that's not the only one. Many African countries, we've seen this, and of course China. Putin's, Russia's. It's clearly kind of a lower status, for sure. But on the other hand, I think Russia's successfully developed this diplomatic strategy to show the West were these colonialists. They were oppressing people. The West always had, the moral, took this moral high ground, this condescending to the former colonies. And Russia was a different person. They treated people as equals, and it was supposed to be an equal exchange. Putin, he's trying to kind of play this up. He invites young leaders, different leaders, people who've been ignored by the West, and shows them that they're these equals. So there's some of this. I think that's what the Russians would say is we're ending the hypocrisy of the West, and we recognize these countries as equals, not as former colonies. Russia, of course, it's different because they colonized internally. Of course, Ukraine's it's a colonial war, but they didn't colonize. They didn't have colonies in Africa, or of course, my home California. They had a colony in California, a Russian colony, but that's long gone. They don't have a colonial history. And so they can kind of exploit that and say, we're treating you different. We're treating you better as equals and not as some colonial master. That's at least what the propaganda.
So in case of Burma, so the Putin has invited the military coup leader as head of state. As
yes,
equal level. Why he has to accept as equal level, or what is Putin's expectation with this military regime in Burma? Is there any Russian benefit in geopolitics, or Putin is pulling just a straw before he is down into the water? How do you think? I mean, in case of Burma, Putin totally ignored the population of the Burmese population, and why he only totally throw into the military dictator. Actually, democratically, is nothing benefit for Russian population. So it's all out for authoritarian move the Putin is doing.
I can say the Russians, they're very cold and calculating. We see with North Korea. I mean, they don't care about what's going on there, the human rights, or the Gulag. They don't care about that. They want their own benefit. And the arms, not the money. North Korea doesn't have any money, but it's the arms, and it's also now they have with North Korea, they have a way to pressure South Korea. They see it as a way to pressure South Korea, and they're doing that very effectively. South Korea produces a lot of the arms, a lot of the weapons that were supposed to go to Ukraine. And now that they have you start acting up, and we can we can help out our ally North Korea, and that's been able to shut South Korea down. That's what they do, right? And we see this in countless countries. Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan. They're very cold and calculating, and they can use these diplomatic relations to pressure other countries, to put pressure on other countries. And so they don't care, of course, about human rights at all. And so Myanmar, well, it's hard to speculate, but my guess is they might want to use that as some kind of hedge against China. They in the future, the Russians, they're a little worried about Chinese power, China growing too strong, and so that might be just like North Korea. That's a good hedge for them. But they look into the future. They're looking, and it's a good chip to play, right? If America, we need something, and we need something in Burma. We need to get something done, some human rights thing. Well, now we'll have to work with Russia, and so that gives Russia one more card. Then he thinks a little like Trump in that way. You saw Trump. He told Zelensky, "You have no cards. You have no cards." Putin, he thinks the same way. What cards do I have? The country. he looks what cards. How can I use this country to get some cards? They don't just look at they don't look at human rights at all, and they don't look at the economy. That doesn't matter so much. It's forming these ties so that he has a card in the future to play. Maybe against China, maybe against the U.S. It's some future card to play.
Right. So in case of North Korea, probably Putin has very right card that he can play.
Yes.
Geopolitics, because North Korea very useful for Russia in terms of any military supply or military cooperation, even geopolitics. Of course, it's become nuclear weapon country state. So
yeah,
that card will be good for Putin, but in case of Burmese military regime, it will be a bad card for Putin because the Burmese regime is not like North Korea, and Burma doesn't have a nuclear weapon for a military power to pressure using the nuclear weapon. The Burma military doesn't have it. In fact, Burmese is a war-torn country. It's control the country less than 50%, and the whole population dislike very unpopular military regime as a
yes,
country. So anytime it will be gone, the military regime can gone in Burma because the local armed force, just because they don't have weapon, anti-aircraft weapon, if they have, they will be totally changed, and military regime will gone anytime. But it's not like North Korea, In case of North Korea, they don't have any domestic conflict, or nobody insurgent, or nobody internal turmoil. So Kim Jong-un totally control the country. So that is a very good cut for Putin. But in case of Burmese military regime, very bad cut for Putin. Isn't that? How do you think that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's of course it's a very different situation than North Korea. Very different situation. North Korea, of course, has a lot more the military and is a nuclear power. But Burma, you said, is very unstable, very unstable country, and China worries about that instability. There's a lot of racketeering and drug use, as I understand, these gambling sites, the fraud, and so it's a concern for China, for the U.S. The U.S. We're very worried about the international crime. These what's it called? These scamming centers, right? Scamming centers, and so the Russia, they can if we're concerned about that now, we'll have to work with the Russians. It gives them some kind of leverage, some kind of card. Libya. There's Libya. The Russians have a lot of influence in Libya now. Libya, it's not a major economy, not a major military power, but we're worried about the instability there. We're worried about the instability. Could be militias or something, and so we have to work with the Wagner forces. And I'm saying that the U.S. has to work with Wagner and kind of partner up, and that's what Putin looks for, these opportunities where he can gain some leverage and force some kind of partnership. Well, we see a good example is Iran. a lot of the reason Trump is so keen to have a negotiation with Putin over Ukraine is, of course, he wants Putin to help him out with Iran. So, you know, there you go. That's how Putin thinks. Hey, I can find a problem country, and then I can get some leverage, and then, you know, it's like, well, you want to help solve the problem in that country, well, you have to work through me. You know, it's a little, I don't know, like kind of more like a mafia racket in that way, if that makes sense.
Yes. So, I mean, Iran is still good card probably for Putin.
Yes.
Similar to North Korea, but Burmese regime, military regime, is not at all good card for Putin probably, because Putin supply all these here, fighter and all these bomb or missile to the military regime. That military regime used to kill innocent people and destroy many churches, many Christian villages and all. You know, many Russian Christians were very hate Putin because of the Putin supply that killed a fellow Christian in Burma. So it isn't that Putin hitting his own nail.
I don't know. You know, if you meet Russians one-on-one, they're wonderful. They're so nice, and I love Russia. You go in, and they're just the nicest. Have you met Russians? They're nicest people, just nicest people one-on-one. But you know, for some reason, they that's one part they kind of tune out those things, those human rights and the things you're talking about. It's just these are abstractions. Turkmenistan, there's a neighbor. Yeah, it's horrible. You know, the repression in Turkmenistan is horrible. It's one of the. It's like a North Korea. Russian, they don't care. They don't care. They don't. You don't hear anything about it. Turkmenistan's, they just, the lead, what benefits we're getting, the leadership, and that's of course, the Kremlin has heavy control over the media. So Russian people, they hear what the Kremlin wants them to. So Myanmar, our friend there, and some deals. You said they visit, the state visits, and Russia's gained an ally against the West. That's what people hear.
Right.
The other things, the repression, they don't hear about that, and most Russians they won't care. They'll assume it's the Voice of America or USAID, some deep American deep state propaganda. That's what they hear.
Probably you can say the Christian religion decline in Russia, or probably the Russian Putin government misled Russian people, and as you said, definitely the media is totally disinformation and
propaganda. Yeah, disinformation, propaganda. Yeah,
people really don't know the ground information. There is, in fact, a lot of evidence about the Burmese military regime destroyed churches and killed many Christians.
No, you're not. You don't hear anything about that. None, right? You're not going to hear that. And then if there's someone does, then you probably go to prison. That they don't want any like human. That's been since Soviet times. Any human rights. People they're very distrustful. What you're a spy or working for the West, or even during the Tsarist times that was true. What do you must be working for some government or something, and some propaganda, and they're very distrustful about any human rights. And then you also have to keep in mind, you talked about the Christians. Of course, the Russian Church, it's Russian Orthodox, and they have their own views. The Russian, it's a little like the Anglican Church in England. It's subservient to, well, not subservient, but the head, Putin is de facto head. Oh, I can get in trouble, but he has a big role over the church. It used to be the czars were the head of the church, and so the church is historically in Russia, the Orthodox Church is like I don't know. Subordinate to the state, or the state has a lot of a lot of input. And when we see this during the Ukrainian war, there's been very little to no criticism of the war, and the church hierarchy. They mainly they've supported the holy war against Ukraine, and they have priests that go and fight in Ukraine. It's a holy cause. There's many priests. They say, the Ukrainians, they're fighting the devil. So we need to go fight the devil in Ukraine.
Probably, as you said, it may be true. As head of state, Putin himself may be de facto leader of the Orthodox Church in Russia, as you mentioned. Probably those Orthodox Church leader in Russia has, they are keep quiet, or they are silent, and they cannot speak out because it is very controlled by state or Russian government. So it's maybe also big freedom of religion problem in Russia itself. Russian
the Jehovah Witnesses were in Russia. They were thrown in prison. Jehovah Witnesses, Jehovah Witnesses, they will not salute the flag. So we have in America, had in school, we had Jehovah Witnesses, and even in America, it's why aren't you saluting the flag? But of course, that's in the Bible. You should not swear to anything but God, not the flag. So Jehovah Witnesses, they follow the Bible, and of course they get in trouble. Nazi Germany was infamous. They threw them in prison, and they were the first ones. Putin, he threw them all in prison as a cult. So, that's you're a dissident, and they throw you in prison. And then of course also a lot of these. I think it's safe to say a lot of the church leaders, they were trained by the KGB as informers, as spies. Unfortunately, there was during Soviet time. So it was Stalin. He opened up the churches again, Stalin, but he made sure the main priests and church hierarchy, they were all working with the secret services, and so that's there too.
Let's see. So it means Russia is only the cover is changed. It said Russian is democracy country, but inside all they are same as Soviet era administration style. All are authoritarian, and as you said, no human right and no freedom. Press freedom, no freedom of religion. Even now, there is a earthquake in Burma supporting weapon and those destruction things.